Hey, it's Jack from Jack Gately Real Estate and the Online Real Estate Academy. I didn't even want to make this video today, but I felt compelled to because I think that the drama at the National Association of Realtors can have a huge impact upon the commission lawsuits. You see, I mean, it is clear that NAR is hurting as an organization, and, they're not in peak form. I'm reminded of that movie, The Fighter, when Christian Bale is convinced, I think that's the one, that he's going to fight somebody because he just got off the couch. In other words, he's not in good shape. And that's how I feel about NAR right now. They've been beaten up for a number of different scandals, and this is maybe like the most important time for them from a legal point of view in a really long time. And they're not in a strong position. I mean, it's just what it is. And so that affects everybody in the industry, whether you're a member of the association or not. So I'm not, as you know, so therefore I'm not part of the vast conspiracy that most of you are who are watching today's video. But NAR has faced some bad headlines again. Mutiny inside NAR as staffers call for resignations of top executives. Employees of the trade group demanded departures of Bob Goldberg, the CEO, Tracy Casper, who just got there like yesterday. She hasn't even found her desk yet. Chief Legal Officer Katie Johnson, and Head of HR Donna Gland on Monday. So basically what they're saying is even though 3 out of those 4 are female leaders, where have they been is basically what the question is. They should have seen this Kenny Parcell thing coming. They should have seen this Kenny Parcell thing coming because it wasn't just Kenny Parcell as the sole offender, that it was an environment that existed beyond Mr. Parcell's alleged actions. Called for the resignation. Staffers sent a letter demanding resignations of NAR leaders ahead of the meetings of the group's executive committee on Monday, according to people familiar with the contents of the missive. We represented of all levels of management in both D.C. and Chicago. The unidentified authors of the letter state, we are men and women, some tenured and some new. The one thing we all have in common is our belief that change cannot happen and healing will not begin until there's accountability for all of those allowed NAR to get into the place it is at today. NAR Regional Vice President Shannon King presented the letter to the committee, assuming she's on board with this, I guess, if she did the presenting, which was held over Zoom. According to a member who listened in, member said the letter was penned by about a dozen NAR staffers, but the member could not identify due to the retaliatory environment that it exists. So if you might remember, during the whole Kenny Parcells thing, there was a hastily assembled meeting in Chicago where they voted their support for Mr. Goldberg as the CEO, even though I think he is scheduled to depart sometime late next year. They were like, yep, we're on board with Goldberg for at least the other 14 months or whatever it is until he effectively retires. Now, one of the more important things that have come out of this, and I think the most thoughtful piece that I've read about this, is from Pam O'Connor. She's the former CEO of leading real estate companies of the world. Just kind of like talk about being a name full of yourself. But she's the former CEO, and she wrote a piece yesterday, which if you have an Inman subscription, I really think you should read it if you're interested in the nuts and bolts. We're not going to go over every article or every point that she makes in this article, but I really do think that this article over at Inman is one of the most thoughtful and in-depth articles I've seen about the entire NAR situation. No more business as usual. Here's what NAR needs to change. Pam O'Connor, leading real estate companies of the world. She's now retired. So, basically when you're retired, you get a little bit more leeway to say whatever you want to say. I think that we're looking here at this paragraph. Simply replacing these positions and expecting successors to make sweeping change is unrealistic, at best and deceptive at worst. NAR, the largest trade association in the country with 1.56 million members, has issues that go much deeper than the recent harassment scandal, as distasteful as it may be. The fact that it took the New York Times expose of NAR to acknowledge these claims and eliminate the principal offender, Kenny Parcell, reflects a culture of entitlement, intimidation, denial flowing from an outdated structure that breeds mediocrity and results in wasteful spending. So with this quote, Pam is basically widening the allegations to say, hey, it's not just this one person. He may have been the principal offender, but it's a cultural problem in NAR itself. And it's not just the atmosphere of sexual harassment, but it's also wasteful spending, which is an allusion, of course, to the whole scandal out of the San Diego Association, which has gotten much less coverage. Basically, it's a 10-year, as I think Rob Hahn referred to it, as like a 10-year mafia situation out at the San Diego Association. And very little coverage on that, but here she is kind of adding that to part of the problem with NAR, and through that, of course, its subsidiary satellites, throughout the country, whether it's San Diego or Minneapolis, any one of the other potential places where there could be a financial scandal. There's basically nobody looking into it, basically what she's saying. The members of NAR should expect their dues dollars, which account for 80% of NAR's revenue, to be used wisely. Multiple 6- and 7-figure salaries for present and past executives, generous travel and fringe benefits, legal expenses and settlements, and lavish, underutilized facilities don't always sit well with members, especially in today's environment. In other words, they've been there too long. They're living high on the hog. They forgot who they work for. Which happens with a lot of large organizations, right? NAR is a powerful organization that does good things. And there are, of course, thousands of talented, hardworking NAR members and employees. Where was I? Just lost my train of thought. For stakeholders to avoid tarnishing its positive contributions, NAR must address its decaying underbelly. Ooh, man. That's tough. Before any single realtor or staff member can lead effective change, powers that within NAR must concede that a serious problem exists, solving the problem, and support the hired and elected leaders to change that implementation. Otherwise, the status quo will continue, and the efforts of a new, well-meaning leaders will be fruitful. In other words, if you just hire Tracy from Idaho, that's not going to fix the problem. Yeah, that's not going to fix the problem. It's much deeper than that. And I think one of the important things that she's also saying is that in the Chicago office, in the Washington, D.C. office of the National Association, they're living high in the hog, but your average real estate agent, whether a member of the association or not, is making, $50,000 or something like that a year. And they're living in a much different America than the wealthy at the top of NAR. I'm just trying to think of some places that I've been in over the last couple of years. I've been very fortunate to travel. And the difference between Chicago and Washington, D.C., or some of the East and West Coast cities versus, I'm just going to throw out some places I've been recently, Buffalo, Wyoming, Natchez, Mississippi, Alpine, Texas, Craig, Colorado, is night and day, right? And I think we see this dichotomy throughout the country where we have fairly well-off elites kind of forgetting who they actually work for. And this is basically the undercurrent of this entire NAR situation as far as I'm concerned. The National Association of Realtors has lost the designation as a great place to work. I know this does sound like to be, just one of those like JD Power, like, how do we buy this designation? This kind of sounds like a scam. Like, how do we fill out the forms and send in the application fee? I don't know how it works, but it does sound like a scam. In any case, they have lost their designation as a, quote, great place to work on the heels of a so-called rally. So this real estate agent, Jason Haber, he's been kind of leading the Me Too movement against NAR. And he had a so-called rally, which was kind of pathetically attended outside the NAR headquarters in Chicago. I mean, it looked like it was like 4 people, maybe more media. When there's more media than there are actually attendees of the rally, it's not going too good. It's not going too good. But nonetheless, the Great Place to Work designation has now been stripped. They've lost their accolade. This is the heartbeat, the epicenter of where the problem is and where the problem must end and end now, says Jason Haber. He's a New York-based Compass agent. I would love to have Jason Haber on the show. I'd love to do an interview with him. Anyone want to reach out? That would be. But he's made a lot of progress on this. But in the end, the voices from the rank and file agents has not. Is this as much as they're going to say? I tend to agree with Mr. Haber on his overall approach and what he's saying. But I think it also goes to the point of how disconnected, again, the leadership in Washington is from your rank and file agent. And the rank and file agent is just trying to get by right now in an environment where we don't have a lot of transactions, right? And they're just focused on how in the world am I going to make ends meet? And these other issues are super important, but how much time do they really have for that when they're just trying to get the next lead, right? I think that's a major disconnect for those agents like Mr. Haber who have the time to spend on this. God bless them. And whether you're agreeing with me on not or not, if you're lending your voice to this topic, good for you. And good that you have the time and mental energy to do that, because a lot of people out there are not, just don't have that. Which brings me to my last point, and we talked about this in one of the shorts a couple of days ago. But RE/MAX has now added itself to Anywhere or Reology in a settlement of the massive commission lawsuits. They have settled for $55 million. And that leaves Home Services, which effectively is Berkshire, Keller Williams, and of course NAR itself as the remaining defendants. So we'll see where that goes. Where are the deepest pockets? I think the deepest pockets, if I'm not mistaken, I think the deepest pockets is actually NAR itself with its 1.56 million members. And of course, NAR is kind of weak right now. And so you think that this is a good time for the lawyers to pounce. But then again, if NAR caves on this thing right now, which I would imagine require additional resources of its 1.56 million members, man, that could be the straw that breaks the camel's back, right? It definitely could be. And there seems to be some friction with some associations saying that maybe we don't need NAR as a requirement to join your local board. Maybe NAR membership should be optional. They don't want to give up the requirement that in order to get MLS in most places in the country, you have to be a realtor. They just don't necessarily want to have the NAR attachment to it. So we'll keep you posted on that. It's a fascinating time for real estate news. I'm Jack from Jack Gately Real Estate and the Online Real Estate Academy. Have a great day.